Hello everyone! Today we're gonna talk about over-exaggerated animation, or other name that we can give it to this, super cartoon. It's the animation that makes us laugh. Animation like Bugs Bunny, Looney Tunes, Roadrunner, Hotel Transylvania, and many more that exaggerate the character. So we will talk about what we can do with Harmony, with rigged or hybrid rigged animation in Harmony to achieve the same feelings of these cartoons, that it will look old retro, squashed, stretched, and almost rubber hosed. So for this stream, we're using a design by one of my favorite contemporary artists. He's working in comics. His name is Sean Galway. So you can go and check his site and his work. He's really awesome, doing a lot of action comics. This rig was created by students of Svetlana Cherepanova, and if you are interested in learning rigging, she's the one to go to. She's currently recruiting for the courses, so check her page on our site. Don't forget harmonydydes.com. Now let's talk about animation. So what is super cartoon style? Exaggerated animation always features fun, entertaining, relatable, and likable characters, while plot lines often aren't the main focus. These shows rely heavily on the characters themselves, so I always try to bring them to the forefront as quickly as possible rather than just selling a concept. There is not much happening in these cartoons, but it's more like a simple humor. I fell and it's funny. Super cartoon characters are simple, usually simple, and easy to understand, so they don't have over-complex animation and over-complex builds. Like moments when viewers think, oh, I haven't seen that before, or I'd love to try drawing that. It looks fun. This way of simplicity. Unlike classic animation, where children characters are often depicted as ideals, exaggerated animation strives to portray how they might realistically look in real life, which feels fresh and appealing, but I say that we saw enough of that. So nowadays, new generation of children do prefer something interesting, different shapes, each character not similar to another character, like SpongeBob or Rick and Morty or Starsky's Forces of Evil, so Owl's House. So all of these cartoons, the characters look unique and they don't share the same anatomy and same pieces. So it's kind of look harder to animate, but it gives a certain level of freedom what we can do and what we can actually invent with these characters. This type of animation we're talking today often contrasts fantasy and reality, creating a believable and accessible world of viewers. So exaggerated animation frequently includes underdog heroes, or characters who defy traditional expectations, making it particularly appealing and memorable by showing deeper, more human aspects of the characters. So it's, as I said, more about characters than about story in general. So don't try to find any interesting story in these cartoons. Slime, for example, is a new character for me, so I need to get familiar with him to set his poses, because I do want to create something unique for him. I'm just drawing him over and over, and only after a few poses does my hand naturally start drawing an ellipse, or maybe like a 55-degree angle ellipse. At the beginning it's not that appealing, and there are a lot of brush strokes that I put, but it's more just to start my arm working. So this is the correct way actually to get familiar with the character. After I'll sketch couple, I'll probably be ready to finalize the pose, but not now, right? So right now it's just a sketch. To make sure I draw slime with consistent proportion like in design, I use an ellipse usually, and I will use it as a template in the future poses I will create with him. But here is another point. When you are drawing an exaggerated character, even if they look flat, they actually have volume. So in that stage, while we draw rough, as we call it, rough animation or rough pose, we need to think about volumes and the three-dimensional view of this character. Not actually creating him in 3D, but we need to create a feeling for him that he is a little bit more 3D. You can see in the design how his head is not quite an egg, not quite a sphere, but facial features wrap around this volume. So we need to work with these facial features to actually wrap around the other shape we will draw. We feel like we change his face, we kind of start to go away from actual ellipse and bend and change it a little bit to make it more interesting, but the face should follow, always follow. So even if they look flat, we need to make sure we kind of change it that they will follow. And when slime is looking up, the angle of his hairline or eyes might shift and compress according to the drawing perspective. So I'm sketching and trying every time something else, see how I can achieve this depth and volume in the character, and maybe a little bit more exaggeration. For instance, I angle the waistband line around his body to define his waist. All this is to give him volume so that the slime looks solid even if he appears flat and graphic. Solidity is one of the laws in animation. Not the 12 law of Disney, that's what I'm talking about. It's actually Walt Stanfield. It's another teacher. He created 28 laws of animation, and he was teaching Disney. He was a teacher of Disney animators. So, but as always, I only start to feel the volume after endlessly sketching the character. So you can see how my poses become more and more exaggerated, more cartoony, and maybe more funny, more appealing for us after the third try. And I'll see, maybe it's gonna be not the last try I'll do. That's why we often review models after several seasons, because everyone starts changing the design. So this happens on every show, no exclusion. So SpongeBob evolves, Homer Simpson evolves, and it's a natural result when multiple artists draw them and they gradually shift. Each animator, each artist bring with him something his unique. The idea is not to let the animators to draw all the same like it was before in Disney animation. It's actually an opposite. We are waiting for something funny, for something interesting to get in our animation movie or TV series that we do, and we rely on the ideas our animators will give us. So we try not to draw as complex animatics as used to be, to make sure we leave freedom for animators, that they will, by polishing or creating a more interesting idea than in actual storyboard, they will add more, something from themselves. As I said, the risk is that sometimes the character is getting lost and he becomes off model. So that's why we often review it again and again in season after season. So yes, when you can convey their personality and mood with just a few short gestures or a quick sketch, so you can say that you start to get to know your characters. Me particularly, I don't like the characters with lots of unnecessary details, so that's why slime is perfect for me. Like I don't like buckles or belts or shoelaces and such. I prefer simple and flatter. I think I don't want to draw all that. I do like to concentrate my idea on facial expression, for example. So I want to sketch out a character quickly and express a personality clearly and simply. Too much extra stuff turns it more into an illustration rather than cartoon, you know? as simple character, as more stuff I can create with him, I can bend and exaggerate, so that's why I like more simple characters. So I love boiling character down to a core gesture or essence, and with simple idea and less details on his costume, it will be easier to do. So super cartoon is one of my favorite styles. I really enjoy it. I also enjoy print because it lets me change the model if I want to. So there is no need to worry about creating a model that ones have to replicate. I can just say, you know what, I'll change the design for this pose because this expression works better. So here I try to do that, right? You see, I kind of like, I'm happy with what I get, what I achieved, so I start to clean it a little bit. So I think I'll be happier and express myself more genuinely if I focus on exaggerated animation than basically just draw the same way than other animators will do as in classical animation. I originally started with classical, but over time I analyzed style and I liked it, and I realized that over exaggerated is more for me. I like sketch comedy and animated cartoons, and I like poses, and I saw that many of my ideas couldn't be fully explored in classical animation. I was kind of always limited by the style. So that's when I decided, or I realized that classical animation is not exactly for me, and I prefer something different. So this style is heavily relying on poses. Creating a pose is a long process, as you could see, but it all starts with an idea. When I come up with a new idea, a new pose that I need to draw, I immediately jot it down. Once I draw it and I like it, like after a couple of attempts, I want to see more of it and bring it to life. So I think that says a lot about how my visual mind works. I just want to see it. That's why I love that even before final movement, we shift to what's called pose building. There where we see the final result and can make sure 100% of it works before we create final animation or final movement. So pose is more interesting for me. The main thing is not to ruin it, but to add to it every time I redraw it. So to be capable to place a character, a build character on the sketch, I need to create something in between. That's what I did before. I cannot do it with my rough, so that's why we call it sketched animation. After sketch is done, it's more clean and detailed than the rough idea, more proportional, that I'll be capable to put my build on that. I can start placing a character. So I do follow the sketch closely and make sure pose designs really flexible and animatable. So shows like Kid Cosmic as a good thing to look for references when you try to understand what kind of style of poses you need to draw in such animations. Kid Cosmic, a little bit more of an action cartoon, but the characters and the design are over exaggerated for smaller children. Because even smaller children wants action now, so that's why it's kind of a hybrid of cartoonized characters with action moves. Also, action is much more grounded and realistic, so that's why sometimes children prefer something like fantasy and less action. So that's why we combine most of the time. So the Kid Cosmic, they look less like cartoon characters and more like real people, but not exactly Batman in his latex pants. So much depends on the tone of the show I'm creating and what style of design reflects or complements that tone. So shown designs are highly graphic and bold, which I do like, on one side, but on other side they're both cute and tough, so it's fun to work with them. Having black outlines give them edge, and it essentially to keep the outlines neat so they don't break the beauty in the sketch. It's actually really hard to work with harmony lines because they're vector, and on certain point we stop working with vector lines and we work with deformers. As you can see, build, it's not about drawing. Builds is already something in between cleanup and sketch. It's not exactly cleanup, inking and coloring, because we create pose and make it better every step we work. So when I did rough, I tried a couple of options. It's fast, so that's why I can do more. So I did 4 variations of slime until I got something that I was in love with and I wanted to develop more. After that, I create sketch where I construct my characters. I think about him as certain cylinders and ovals and circles, and how I can insert all of these elements inside the rough pose I drew, a shape basically that I drew, without breaking him too much. I do want to make him funny, so that's why I don't want to stick to the build itself. You could see that my sketch is completely different from what the actual character looked and built. But builds, they created the way that we can squash and stretch them. So after I place cutout pieces, these peg elements that we have in Harmony, I start to polish it a little bit with deformers, with his body, with his belly right now. When I can move pegs, I move it, but then I always add a little bit of deformation. So deformation, it's like an element that around any drawing we create. If we work with deformers, if we switch to this build rig thing, we cannot get back and redraw it. Usually it's wrapping like a net on top of the element we drew, and it allows us to move it. There are certain limitations. Not everything is possible, especially with gradients, or for example, deformer cannot make elements smaller. There is always like a critic mass that will never disappear. So if you will try to make the element smaller than his 20%, probably it's gonna create you problems. The pieces of deformer is gonna stick out, and you won't, without knowing what you're doing, you will need to start doing it again. But after the deformers are part of your build, it's easy to work with them. You can see that we move handles. Each deformer, it consists from edges, not actually from dots or points as people used to in 3D animation. It's more like edge from one point to another, like in this tongue. So we have 2 edges, and it's a family. So if we place one, we will need to place another one. So only this way. And basically, when I work with my character, I need to think about all of these little details, not to get away with the style, still to do something that will look appealing. So that's why 28 principles are really, really handy for us. They're talking about almost every aspect that might be potentially needed in animation. So I suggest to read the Wolf Snellfield book. And it will help you also, not just with drawing, also with rigging. So or rigged animation, even not rigging. So you will understand better by these rules what should be done, but you don't need to obey these rules. You always can change it a little bit to actual stuff you needed for your uniqueness, for your shot. Well, I'm wrapping up this pose with build. I just want to create a mini conclusion for what we were talking about today about super cartoon animation and rigged puppets and harmony. So we've explored the creative possibilities that super cartoon animation brings for us, especially when combined with rigged puppets. This style is all about capturing personality and expression with simple, bold shapes and exaggerated movements, creating characters that feel both relatable and visually compelling. Even though we work with rigged, we still have a possibility to do whatever we want. There is no way that rigged cannot achieve it. If he can't, that we need to send it back or to fix it, to do something that this rig will achieve. Potentially, the technology that is within the harmony is allowing us to create any option, any pose, to break the character and still be capable to spare a little bit of time after that while we're gonna create interpolations or tween between two poses, because this would be the most time consuming process. That's why we are trying to give this process to harmony, not to deal with ourselves. Poses, we are spending more time even than classical animators, because we need to make sure the pose the pose will be perfect, that we can reuse it and tween with harmony. So rigging in harmony, especially when executed thoughtfully, allows us to bring these characters to life with dynamic flexibility. So we need to have smart rigger to work on the project, actually, to achieve cool stuff. If we don't have a good rigger, we probably won't be capable to create something that would be movable or stretchable as we would like in animation. We need to ensure consistency across scenes, so that's why a person that works on such show should know how to draw, even though half of the stuff we do with twins. So throughout the process, we saw how essential it is to focus on the character core, especially building their gestures and forms in a way that communicates their personality instantly. This method, along with tools that streamline rigging, gives the animators the freedom to concentrate on expressive, quick storytelling. The style is dry, but on another, it's more exaggerated than classical animation. Without getting bogged down by excessive details or overly complex elements, we can stay concentrated on pose, working more on pose, and that's why we have more time and we can create better poses. Whether you're aiming to create humorous sketches, deeply relatable characters, or simply bring more life to a project, this approach offers endless potential. So it's not about cheap animation. Even though we don't draw it frame by frame, it's a complex style. And as we wrap up, remember that the heart of super cartoon animation lies in blending simplicity with expression, making each pose purposeful and each gesture full of character. So if you do all of this and use technology wisely, give technology only the part that it actually help you or can help you, and not literally trying to twin two poses that are not finished, or two poses that are so far away from each other that they obviously will need a breakdown in between or something that will connect them. You can succeed in working in this style. It's both creative and technical, so you need to know the program, you need to know to draw, and you need to know how to combine two of these worlds together, take creative from the sketch and take technical clean from work in harmony. So thank you for joining for this webinar, and we hope you are inspired to explore and innovate to your own animations, to create new styles, because each animator has his own vision. There will not be the same pose for each characters. Even Slime, as I already mentioned today, he would be changing through different seasons, different episodes, different animators that would work on him. This would be my opinion what this character should look. Sometimes animators get too far and start to change character too much. So that's why we need to work within pipeline to make sure we have supervisors that follow up and check that the characters are not different from each other from shot to shot. But that would be already a complete different story.